humans pursue their self-interests. It'll become extremely political at some points. So how do you solve this problem? Hey, this is Travis. Today, I want to talk about how I lost hope for the world politically and how I regained that hope through Bittensor. I think it's clear if you're old enough that politicians are just always going to become corrupted. Even if it's the guy that you voted in or that you liked, eventually they're corrupted in some way. Where are the good people who are supposed to be leading society to a positive future? And I think part of the answer there is that you just have to accept that everyone is corruptible by power. There's very few people that we haven't seen become corrupted by power. And I think one of the hallmarks of somebody who is not easily corruptible is that they don't go after those positions of power. Somebody who has the honesty to be able to say, you know what, I don't know how society should run, and I would probably run it poorly. That kind of person with that kind of honesty and integrity probably should be the one who's running things. But the way the current system works is that in order to be a successful big business, you've got to have lobbyists. Those lobbyists have to get preferential treatment within government. And if you're not doing that with your large business, you're actually running it wrong. You're running it the wrong way. The game theory optimal way of playing business, at least at that level, is to actually make sure that you've got lobbyists in place to get the preferential treatment when you need it, to squash your competitors and all that stuff. And if you don't do that, your competitors will. And so how do you solve this problem? How do you make it so that the system doesn't incentivize this sort of bad behavior where you're relying on lobbyists to use the force of government to, get your way in business? And I don't think you can rely on voting somebody in to solve that problem. I think it cost Obama's campaign, the last campaign, about $1 billion to win. I think the most recent Trump campaign is somewhere in that same ballpark. And so where do you get $1 billion from? It's got to be contributions from the businesses that you're going to, give preferential legislation to or whatever, right? So you can't really vote somebody in to fix that system when it requires that system in order for them to get voted in, right? So how do you solve this problem? I think it's one of the biggest unsolved problems in society that is just going to get worse and worse. We can see from history that no society lasts forever. We can also see from history that very often money printing precedes the collapse of a society. So how do we create an advanced society that doesn't suffer from this corruption problem that we just kind of take for granted nowadays? I think Bitcoin is a very good first step, huge pivotal moment, right? As far as it's so much easier for the average person now to be able to save their wealth than it was pre-Bitcoin. When we look at inflation and just the ability to save your wealth was just impossible for the average person pre-Bitcoin. But now we have a vehicle for that. And I think what that means is that over time, the power that comes with money printing is going to diminish, because we're going to start probably in the next 15 years, say, to peg currencies against Bitcoin's limited supply. And it's just going to become clear to anyone that holding your money in, these inflationary central bank currencies is just a bad strategy for building wealth over the long term. And it had to be something like Bitcoin that did it, something that was unstoppable because it's decentralized. We saw many people try to create their own digital currencies before Bitcoin, and they were centralized in some way, and they just got shut down. But there was one kind of major issue with Bitcoin, at least in the early years, which was convincing people to hold it. Why should I hold this? And you still get this today, right? People are like, why should I hold this thing? I don't understand it. It still seems like a scam. And then you got to go into all the economic reasons and understand the history of the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. So convincing people to use it was very difficult, especially in the early years. And it's still continuing to be difficult. There was this vision back in the early Bitcoin days that everybody would use Bitcoin and transact with it. But it's really hard to do that, right? There's a lot of infrastructure around US dollars as well. There's not really a compelling reason to hold Bitcoin other than saving your wealth, which granted is a really good reason to hold it. But I think what Bittensor is doing is just going to be so much more profound for the world and do so much more good than Bitcoin. So firstly, cryptocurrency is clearly the way of the future. However, it's definitely suffered from just a crapload of scams and shadiness, right? You get the same scam over and over and over again, the same sort of like, all right, the devs are going to get, 90% of the supply, and then they don't actually have to do anything for that 90%. So crypto in general has this really bad reputation for that because people do get suckered in. They're like, oh yeah, cryptocurrency must be the future, and they have no experience with it. And then they go in on some coins and those coins just fail because they've got terrible tokenomics. Well, this is one thing that Bittensor fixes, right? All of the coins within Bittensor are required to have sound tokenomics, right? All the alpha tokens. So they're starting from a place of sound tokenomics. Now, if the subnet owner wants to, they can certainly tweak and play around with that and try to, destroy those tokenomics. But the default way that subnets are built requires them to have sound tokenomics. Otherwise, they'll just fail. Now, we do get some scams and whatnot in Bittensor as is expected, but I think it's actually a lot less than in other ecosystems. And also, those alpha tokens, those subnets, they need to actually be producing something valuable to earn investment from the community, right? And then clearly and already, many subnets are already state of the art, which is great. But then the next thing it does on top of making state of the art products and services is that it starts to take away power from politicians. And it really kind of exposes the power that politicians have, which is power over their, local jurisdiction. Because I think what will start happening is eventually subnets will start getting too disruptive, and then regulators will start to regulate against those subnets. But then we'll find that they only have power over their jurisdiction. California legislators will start legislating against, whatever it is that's hurting, say, Silicon Valley. But what exactly will they be able to legislate? They may be able to stop miners from mining on Bittensor in California. They might be able to stop subnet owners from operating out of California. Same with validators. But that has really barely any impact on Bittensor, right? What you're doing then is you're incentivizing the people who are making a living off of Bittensor to move out of California. That's what you're doing as a legislator. And the impact that you would actually have on Bittensor would be very minimal because A, the code is all open source. So say the subnet owner just has to shut down or whatever. Well, somebody can just copy their code and start up a subnet almost from the same point where the old subnet owner left off. Of course, maybe there's some code like the website code that isn't open source, but the actual operations of the subnet are all open source. So I think we're going to see like a real big political impact because we haven't seen this sort of like decentralized, unstoppable network, really impacting industries. And I think it'll become extremely political at some points. And that's not necessarily because it should be, but more so because, it threatens the powers that be. And the powers that be are very good at politicizing issues, trying to get people on their side. And I think with that, one of the big complaints about governments nowadays is transparency. And of course, when you compare, say, a government with Bittensor, Bittensor is super, super transparent, right? Like you can see everything on the chain. You can see all the code that's happening. You can see all of the subnet code, and it's becoming more and more transparent every day through tools like mine, like Talflute and other tools. We've only just started to see the first competitive subnets that are actually producing stuff. So we're talking about like Shoots and Targon and Liam, and there's at least a dozen more that are actually productive on Bittensor. But this is like the first ideation of how Bittensor should look. And we're seeing a lot of variety on that. But I think the variety that is possible is just a lot more than any of us can imagine. The way that Bittensor is written is you can just code whatever you want into an incentive mechanism. And I'm not really sure what, the next set of successful Bittensor subnets will look like. I kind of wonder about the jobs that are being done by government now if those could be done better by Bittensor subnets, because they have to be profitable, because anybody can vote on them, anybody can produce the outcomes. It's like super transparent. You're not going to get any corruption as is normal with government contracts. So to me, it seems like a possibility in Bittensor's future that politicians are, kind of exposed for how they wield their power, but then also B, like maybe Bittensor just does it better. Now, I don't really know what this will look like, but what I do know is that, Bittensor feels like the base layer for fixing a lot of these problems, these societal corruption problems. Bitcoin sort of felt like, oh, maybe it could, but I think Bittensor is just so much closer and so much more flexible at achieving the goal of reducing corruption in the world. I think it's fantastic that it's market-based. So whatever comes out of it is just going to be the best ideas in the world. And that, in my lifetime, we will likely get to see a very big paradigm shift as far as creating an incorruptible world. Now, again, I don't really hold any malice or ill will towards those that have been corrupted by power, say. I think it's just a very natural phenomenon that everyone is susceptible to. And, fixing these like political issues, a lot of people will be like, oh, we need to tear down the state, or we need to guillotine people, or whatever it is. Like, we don't need to do that with Bittensor. And that to me is also very, very special. We can handle this corruption like adults, understanding that, humans are flawed and that's okay. We just build systems that account for those flaws. And we don't need to try to change the humans. We just build systems that allow those humans to pursue their self-interests and to turn that into a good thing. And that is what Bittensor is. As far as timeline goes, I think this sort of major disruption to the political landscape is probably at least 10 years away. Probably in the next 2 years, we'll start to see whispers of it as various Bittensor subnets start to really outperform existing businesses. And remember, those existing businesses, if they're playing the game properly, they have to have lobbyists to help them stay on top. But the reality is that a lobbyist can stop their own people from interacting with it or purchasing services from it, but they can't stop Bittensor. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens in the next 10 years. I'm going to be there the whole way watching. I'm sure I'll be canceled by then, but super hyped for the future of Bittensor.